Hey everyone, welcome to KSSP Podcast. I am Spencer,
And I'm Katie.
and today we're going to be talking about cults. So, Katie's gonna start us off with that today.
All right, so first we're going to go over a couple of definitions here. One is from the Oxford Dictionary, and it reads, a cult is a system of religious veneration and devotion directed toward a particular figure or object. The wiki definition, which I personally think is more encompassing and is a little more accurate. It says in modern English, cult is usually a pejorative term for a social group that is defined by its unusual religious, spiritual, or philosophical beliefs and rituals, or its common interest in a particular personality, object, or goal.
I like that one, yeah, because
Yes.
it includes personality or object or goal. It's
Yeah.
not just an
And,
ideology
and it
per se.
includes philosophical beliefs as well,
Yes, that yeah.
which is important. So I have a couple of videos about different cults that we can watch really quick here. And the first video is Jonestown mass suicide, revisiting the cult that ended with the deaths of 900 by today.
As an effort by a charismatic preacher to build a new society, but it ended, of course, with the tragic deaths of more than 900 people. Here's NBC's Joe Fryer.
Jonestown was supposed to be a paradise in the South American jungle. It was anything but.
The saddest part about this tragedy is that good, decent people died who were well-intentioned.
The story begins in America during the 1970s when Jim Jones created a religious movement called People's Temple. The charismatic minister fought for civil rights and had a multiracial family.
It was the original Rainbow family,
including his adopted son, Jim Jones Jr.
Did his message at the time resonate with you?
Yes. No isms, no sexism, racism.
But in the new book, The Road to Jonestown, author Jeff Gwynne details how Jones started to change.
He's convinced himself that he is some sort of superhuman martyr.
Jones persuaded nearly 1,000 followers to move to a remote jungle in Guyana.
The concept was to build a new world.
A socialist utopia.
Jonestown was
Okay. Yeah, I could see why people would have gotten tricked by him.
No, yeah, I think, and I also do wonder though if I don't know, obviously. I don't know him as a person, but I wonder if he truly did have good intentions in the beginning though. Like, and then it just led to, I guess it's hard to say, even if like we look back at his history, like maybe people can look back at his history and try to make a claim, but I feel like if you don't actually know who he was as a person, then but maybe like past family members, if they personally knew him, or like if anybody who actually knew him before the cult, could say what his character was like before. But I mean, either way, that obviously doesn't excuse what he did. I'm just saying, I just wonder if he didn't because I feel like sometimes people don't always start with bad intentions, but then it ends up turning into something that sometimes they either can't control, or if they like the power that they get, then they kind of start to abuse it in a way,
right?
Whether they were going to be bad at or not in the beginning.
Right. Yeah, because people can definitely get addicted to power for sure.
Yes.
When I'm just thinking, like, if someone was telling me about a spiritual doctrine when I was younger, like, you know, like no racism or sexism, and it's going to be a socialist utopia, like that, sign me up. Like,
no, yeah,
sounds like a tropical jungle, like that sounds pretty awesome. Like, I could definitely see why people would have been tricked by him, especially because usually these cult leaders have very charismatic personalities as well.
Yes, 100%.
described as his paradise, and it was not.
Former member Leslie Wagner Wilson says followers were overworked and underfed.
And then as time wore on, I realized that there was no future in Jonestown. Jim became increasingly paranoid.
Jones was obsessed with revolutionary suicide. He felt followers should be prepared to die for their cause, even having them drink fruit punch he claimed was poison.
Only after most of the people drank the liquid did he tell them, it's not poison, I was just testing you.
In November 1978, a concerned congressman, Leo Ryan, flew to Guyana to investigate, accompanied by NBC News. While some followers praised Jonestown, others wanted out.
What is your wish today? To go back home. And where's home? U.S.
As the congressman left, he took 15 defectors with him, angering Jones.
People play games, friend. They lie. What can I do about lies? Are you people going to leave us? I just beg you, please leave us.
He ordered gunmen to follow the group to the nearby airstrip, where they opened fire. 5 were killed, including Congressman Ryan, NBC correspondent Don Harris, and cameraman Bob Brown. Sound engineer Steve Sung and field producer Robert Flick escaped, as did Ryan aide and future Congresswoman Jackie Spear. Back at the commune, Jones gathered his followers for a final sermon.
We've had as much of this world as you're going to get. Let's be done with it. Let's be done with the agony of it.
This time, Jones served a punch spiked with cyanide. More than 900 died, 300 of them children. Jones shot himself.
We know from autopsies conducted later that a considerable number of people were held and forcibly injected with the poison.
In the end, how many relatives did you lose?
I lost 11 relatives.
Wagner Wilson and her 3-year-old lived because they were part of a small group that escaped during the confusion that morning, hiking through more than 30 miles of dense jungle to safety.
How scared were you to try to escape?
I was terrified. I was waiting for a bullet to hit at any moment. I was prepared to die on that day.
I don't know how I can ever describe it in words.
Jim Jones Jr., 18 at the time, lost his wife, but he lived because he was in Georgetown, Guyana's capital, as part of his frequent public relations work for the temple.
So the million-dollar question is, would I have done it? I can't say I would, but I can't say I wouldn't have.
That shows how much power Jones had.
And part of that, I believe, is because we all are looking for a place to fit into the world. We're looking for love. We're looking for acceptance. And Jim Jones provided that.
Today, a memorial in Oakland serves as a remembrance for those who died, predominantly African Americans and the elderly, whom Jones's initial message resonated with.
I think the lessons of Jonestown is to really go within so you don't have to go without.
It's better to live for a cause than die for it.
Despite what happened, the minister's son still goes by the name Jim Jones Jr.
I'm proud of the upbringing and the education I was given. That's a lot to be proud of. I also have to accept the horrific tragedy that my father caused, but he caused it, not me.
For Today, Joe Fryer, NBC News.
Well, looking back, I remember the headlines around that time.
All right, I don't care about Matt Lauer. We're just going to go to the next video.
Okay.
All right, this one is a little shorter. This one is the videos inside Heaven's Gate house reveal those lured into a cult. 2020, the Cult Next Door preview. This is ABC News.
A sprawling mansion, the curtains drawn, a mystery inside. An old videotape begins to flicker into view. Our first glimpse of a secret world. It is Christmas, and we see a kind of family bustling with activity. In their home videos, everyone's smiling, hugging, laughing. At the stove, a girl from a well-heeled New York neighborhood. She was once a cheerleader. The whole world at her feet.
If you do 2 fast breaks, it's really a pain.
A young man born into a prominent Connecticut family. His future filled with opportunity and wealth.
Are you filming this? No.
The tall man at the door with a blazing smile, once a Colorado businessman, a former political candidate. Another beautiful, quiet smile. He is the brother of a famous actress on an iconic TV show.
Hailing frequencies open, sir.
She is Lieutenant Uhura from Star Trek.
We should have been there 10 minutes ago, sir.
Look at the camera. You look great.
So many people on this tape once high achievers, strivers filled with promise. Now performing a giddy talent show. That's a valedictorian who was once a presidential scholar. So take a closer look at the revelers. Do you notice anything about them? Their haircuts, exactly alike.
Oh.
Baggy clothes, no gender. And with every move, they fix their adoring gaze on one man in the room. They call him Doe.
Marshall Herb Applewhite, Doe, is basically their god.
Who is this man called Doe? And what is the source of his power over highly accomplished people from all over the country? Ohio, Missouri, Minnesota. Listen, he's directing the scene.
Look at the camera. Where's your normals? There. Ah. Good.
For more than 20 years, how has he convinced these followers he can lead them through the gates of heaven? He promises they'll be carried to the next level of existence in a UFO.
Oh, wow.
Does he believe what he's saying? As he asks them to record video farewells to Earth, death just hours away. Tapes that raise so many questions about the narrow divide between choice and coercion, faith and delusion.
Tinkerbell warns Peter Pan that every time someone stops believing in little people like her, a little person dies.
The people in the world who thought that I had completely lost my marbles. They're not right.
These people who are laughing 24 or 48 hours later ingest poisonous barbiturates and kill themselves with bags tied over their heads.
Oh, wow. So, okay. Well, that's terrifying.
Yeah,
that laugh was kind of sketchy, too. Those laughs were kind of sketchy, too.
Oh, yeah. I feel like they were very, like when you, how do I explain it? It's like when you lose touch with reality, almost like that kind of laugh.
Yeah.
But I do find it very interesting how like both of those cults also had the like some sort of suicide leading to a new life ideology. Like that's just an interesting thing to like find that I saw or that I heard that like connects them.
Yeah.
Like they both had led, or not necessarily led with, but there was the ideology that when we die we will transcend, and like so then they drank the punch or the barbiturates, I think, in the Heaven's Gate. But
yeah, and they tied bags over their heads too, as they said. Yeah. So okay. I've got this article really quick here, and it's 10 Things to Know About the Psychology of Cults by Online Psychology Degree Guide. So, number 1, cults are attractive because they promote an illusion of comfort. Humans desire comfort, and in a fearful and uncertain world, many turn to cults. They tend to promote exactly that. John Patrick Peterson, a psychologist at Caltech, has pointed out that cult leaders often make promises that are totally unattainable, but also offered by no other group in society. Such things might include financial security, total health, constant peace of mind, and eternal life, the things every human desires at the deepest level. Cults satisfy the human desire for absolute answers. Today's world is a tough one with more abstract issues than there are issues that are black and white. As Dr. Adrian Furnham describes in Psychology Today, humans crave clarity. Many people join cults because they believe they're being offered solid absolute answers for questions such as good versus evil, religion, the meaning of life, politics, etc. Many cult leaders promote messages that are simple and seem to make sense, the exact opposite of what we're often provided with in a typical everyday life. New members are often found when individuals crave these answers and then are promised a simple life by someone who seems to have figured it all out. Those with low self-esteem are more likely to be persuaded by a cult environment. People are often surprised to learn that those who join cults are, for the most part, average people. Many victims of cults are your neighbor, your friend from the gym, your family member. They come from all different backgrounds, all zip codes, and all tax brackets. But research done in the past 2 decades has found an interesting pattern. Many people successfully recruited by cults are said to have low self-esteem. Cults generally do not look to recruit those with certain handicaps or clinical depression. However, people with low self-esteem are easier to break down than build back up in an effort to teach them that the cult is the supportive environment they're looking for. Those that lack confidence and self-esteem are far more likely to fall for a pyramid scheme that promises a better life or to jump into a religious community or religious group without much thought. They are more vulnerable and desperate for these life promises. New recruits are love bombed. Once people have been recruited by a cult, they are often love bombed. This odd phrase is commonly used to describe the ways in which someone with low self-esteem is constantly flattered, complimented, and seduced in order to train their brain to associate the cult with love and acceptance. When somebody feels unworthy of love, they are the first to fall for the false affirmations associated with love bombing. Unfortunately, cults often reach intense, unhealthy, and inappropriate levels of closeness and love when they are preying on the weak. This often leads to sexual abuse, arranged plural marriage, child abuse, sex trafficking, harboring, blackmail, and more. Women are more likely than men to join a cult. According to various research, women make up a whopping 70% of cult members around the globe. Psychologists have different ideas about why more women than men join cults. Dr. David Bromley of Virginia Commonwealth University points out that women simply attend more social gatherings, either religious or otherwise. This makes women statistically more likely to join groups that will ultimately victimize them. Others suggest it has to do with the fact women have been oppressed for much of the human history. Therefore, they're more comfortable being under an authority figure. Still others write this off as total crock. Emily Klein, the author of the best-selling cult-themed novel The Girls, theorizes that young women are often taught to seek the attention of men and to wait for rescue. Joining a cult, says Klein, is a way for many young women to feel as if they are seizing their destiny. It may also be more likely for a woman to join a cult when she is greeted by other women who are part of the group. Women tend to feel safe around other women. Many cult members have rejected religion. Dr. Stanley H. Kath, a psychoanalyst and psychology professor at Tufts University, has treated more than 60 former cult members over the course of his career. From this unique first-hand experience, Kath has noticed an interesting trend. Many people who join cults have experienced mainstream religions at some point in their lives and rejected it. Perhaps this is surprising, considering many cults tend to be religious, or at least claim to be. But Dr. Kath asserts that this trend is a sign of something deeper. Many of those who join cults are intelligent young people from sheltered environments. Growing up in such an environment, says Dr. Kath, often means that many have a history of failing to achieve intimacy, of blaming others for their failures, and of constantly striving for perfectionist goals. These characteristics make them prime targets for cult recruitment. When a cult is offering a unique religious movement that feels safe but also a way to find their inner worth, they are likely to believe every word they are being told. Cults maintain their power by promoting an us versus them mentality. Cults prove more powerful because they're able to successfully isolate members from their former non-cult lives. One of the ways cult leaders achieve this is to convince their followers that they are superior to those not in the cult. The us versus them mentality ultimately leads to cult members isolating themselves socially from friends and family. They replace those relationships with new ones inside of the cult. Cult leaders are masters of mind control. Cult leaders convince their victims to separate themselves from society, give up personal possessions, and sometimes huge sums of money. They convince people to buy into whatever they are promoting. To do all this, a cult leader must be a master at mind control. Ways in which leaders gain control over cult members vary, but some popular methods include public humiliation, self-incrimination, brainwashing, paranoia. Cult members often have no idea they're in a cult. Although it can be obvious to those around them, people in cults often don't realize what they have become a part of. Dr. Margaret Thaler Singer spends most of her career studying the psychology of cults and brainwashing. She found that most people enter a cult willingly without realizing the power is bound to have over them. Singer theorizes that this is partly because some people are more willing to see the perceived benefits than they are potential dangers. She also mentions that many people assume cults are only religious, though in truth, cults can also be political groups, lifestyle groups, or business groups. Cult life can have a dangerous and lasting effect. Cult victims often spend years overcoming the emotional damage incurred in their time spent in a cult. Psychologists who treat former cult members routinely describe the long-term effects being in a cult environment can have on the human body. Dr. John G. Clark Jr. is a Harvard psychiatry professor and the co-founder of a nonprofit group which treats former members and their families. He specifically mentions that the symptoms of temporal lobe epilepsy are similar to those seen or reported as resulted from cult conversions. Increased irritability, loss of libido or altered sexual interest, ritualism, compulsive attention to detail, mystical states, humorlessness, and sobriety heightened paranoia. While there are varying degrees of intensity when it comes to cults, they are emotionally damaging no matter what. Being brainwashed and controlled for a prolonged period would emotionally damage any person, regardless of if they are now a former member. However, the length at which some cults go to when they have true power of humans is very concerning. Many people who have been brainwashed into living the life of a cult have experienced terrible things, especially those that were children had no other choice because their family lived there. Some examples include child abuse, sexual abuse, sex trafficking, child pornography, viewing mass sui, learning that members died, and forced marriage. So that's what I have on cults. That's all the information that I want to show there.
Okay. I do like, though, how the one source, the psychology source, did mention that political groups can also be
And
cults.
business groups too,
And yes,
like MLMs and that kind
'cause
of thing.
oh yeah, because I think that's one of the big things that always gets me when talking about cults is that people, even though, like with the sources that you used, it explains what a cult is, I still think a lot of people pick and choose what they call a cult, which is annoying because like they just decide to call a cult whatever they don't like. They're not actually calling a cult what it is, because otherwise they would admit if they are in it, which I get. People, like the article said, it's hard for people to know they're in a cult, which I get that, because why, like that's not something anybody would want to admit
Well,
either.
and like if you knew it was a cult, you probably wouldn't join it.
Yeah, because nobody wants to admit that they've been bamboozled. I
Right? No
get
one
that.
wants to.
That's a hard thing to admit. But we also have to be able to admit that. That's something that we have to. Otherwise, you're not going to grow and get out of the. Like, if you are in a cult, if someone tells you you're in a cult and you don't at least consider that maybe I am, then I think it's concerning that you might be in a cult if you're not willing to at least critically think about why they would say
Yeah.
that. Like if a friend comes up to you and is like, "I'm just concerned you might be in a cult," and you just get defensive, then I would be concerned that you are in a cult if you are going to get defensive about it and not be open to having a discussion about why they think that.
Oh yeah. Because I'm
Um,
sure at certain points, well, I know at certain points, like there is that cognitive dissonance that starts to pop up, at least for some people in these cults, because those are usually the people who eventually try to leave. And then, they
yeah,
prevent them from leaving however they can, even if it means killing them, which is not
yeah,
good.
which no,
And not
that's
every cult ends in death.
no. I also personally think that there are cults like political.
Oh, yeah.
So if you, in my opinion, blindly vote Republican or blindly vote Democrat, then you're in a cult, like a political cult. I don't care if
I
you
mean,
don't want to admit it, but if you're just going to blindly vote for a politician without like researching them, researching their policies, critically thinking why you're voting for them, you're just voting for them because of their party, then you are in a cult.
or like QAnon would be a cult because they're all worshiping
Oh
Trump
yeah.
and Q, whoever that is.
Yeah, and I would say any extremist group, or like sometimes even, to me, what defines a cult, what I always consider a cult, is anything that you blindly follow. So to me, that would even be religion, Christianity. If you blindly follow it without critically thinking about it, then you are in a cult. But I am not saying that all cults are necessarily bad. I think we need to move away from that prerogative term use of
Yeah.
cult, because I'm not going to claim that all cults are bad, but we also need to be able to admit what an actual cult is, and to me that is blindly following people and not critically
And,
thinking about what you're being told in a
and I
way.
don't think it's the fact that not all cults are bad, because I would say at least most cults are probably bad, but the people who are involved in cults are not bad people.
No,
I would put
not
it
I
that way, I
mean,
guess.
as long as they're not hurting people,
Yeah.
then no. Yeah, they're not
Or
bad.
like the group isn't hurting them.
Yeah. Like you mean the person that's in
Like
like
the
the
leader or
cult
like
isn't
whoever
hurting.
they put in charge to hurt people or whatever, like if that's not happening, like if no one's getting hurt from the cult, that's
Yeah. Like in the cult or out of the
fine.
cult, you mean. Yeah. I think I know what you're like you like it even if they're not hurting people outside the cult, they shouldn't be hurting people inside the cult either.
Exactly.
Is that what you
Yeah.
mean? Okay.
And I
I was like, I
mean,
think that's what you're
yeah. My hot take is that, I'm sure people have heard this before, but even AA is almost a little cult like just in the way. Not every AA
Yeah.
meeting is. There are some that I've been to that are decent, but some of the ones I've been to just feel very cult like you're following the dogma without questioning it or why you're doing it. And like if you don't have like a higher power, then like it's basically like, I mean, they say you can make anything your higher power, but like, if you don't have a higher power, then you don't have one that you believe in. And
Yeah.
then, how are you supposed to accomplish those steps? And it works for some people. That's great. As long as your group isn't being hurtful to anybody, then that's fine. It's not a bad thing, but it does feel cult like to me.
Yeah, and I think it's good to be able to admit that. Like again, like you said, that doesn't mean every single AA program is
Exactly.
culty, just like I don't claim every Christian group is culty, but there are some, and we
Mhm.
need to be able to admit that because we cannot only claim cults as something that we don't like. So if you're religious but don't like spirituality and you're calling spirituality a cult, but you refuse to call religion a cult, that's wrong. Then you are being selective in how you are defining things and you are not using the term appropriately.
Yes, exactly.
So we just need to be honest, in my opinion, about what cults truly are. Because otherwise, if we just deny that some things can be a cult, that's just going to lead to it happening more
Yeah,
often. We need to be able to see the signs and know what a cult is, even because half of the time cults are not going to look bad from the beginning
yeah,
either. They don't always, they're not going to automatically start with we're going to do like a mass suicide or we're going to hurt others, because that wouldn't get any people. They want to get people in the beginning, so they're going to tell you what you want to hear in the beginning. So and I'm not, anyone can fall for a cult. I'm not saying that I just because I know or feel that I have an okay understanding of what a cult is, that doesn't mean I can't fall for one. Anyone can,
yeah.
but it's always good to be able to critically think about any situation that you're going to be put in. And I sometimes I would say trust your gut. If it feels culty, it it might be. Just definitely be wary, I would say. If it feels like a iffy situation, then I would maybe assess why you think that. And then maybe you could pick out the signs that point to, okay, yeah, maybe this is kind of like a cult, so I shouldn't. Even again, if it seems great and it seems
Yeah.
like an amazing thing to get involved in, that's what they want you to
Right.
think
Sometimes it's
in the
just too
beginning.
good to be true, though. That's the thing.
Yes. So, and I'm not saying that that automatically means it's a cult, but you need to keep your mind open because
You need to stay.
otherwise that's when they can like trap you and get
Yeah,
you.
definitely need to stay skeptical, especially meeting new people
Yes.
in general.
Yeah, and that doesn't mean that you think they're a bad person either, but you're just protecting yourself. Like you can be skeptical of someone in the beginning and then find out, okay, they're not like, and then find out that you guys do get along and that it is a fine friendship, but it's not wrong to be skeptical in the beginning
Like,
at all of any really or any ideology or
yeah.
anything. Like we should always, and sometimes again, like I think we've mentioned time and time again, you always want to see why they are trying to make you believe what they are trying to make you believe too. Like if there's a underlying cause that they're trying to push or the whatever they're trying to ideology they're trying to push in a way. So you just want to always be skeptical. I would agree with that for sure. Yeah, I think it's just important just to be aware of what I would consider actual definition of a cult, the broader definition of a cult, so that you can protect yourself too, because that's what it's about. It's about protecting yourself. It's not about dissing people or having some moral superiority over people who fall for cults. Not at all. That's never what we would promote
Right.
at all. It's about protecting yourself and being wary of the signs, being aware of the potential signs of a cult so that you can protect yourself from. And again, even knowing all the signs, you can still fall for a cult. It doesn't gonna 100% protect you, but it's something that you should work on too.
And if you know someone who you think is personally in a cult, definitely talk to them about it.
Yes. Because and again, that may feel like an uncomfortable situation or conversation, but it's still important to have. Because if you are truly concerned about your friend or any relationship, like a acquaintance, even if you maybe don't know them for long, but you're just concerned, you should be able to have those
Yeah.
conversations
And,
with
yeah,
them.
and even if they immediately get defensive, like later on, they'll probably still think about what you said and start to question things
Yeah,
if you bring it up with them. I mean, maybe not, but
yeah,
it's
and it doesn't
pretty
have to.
likely that they will at some point.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be rude or an argument. You can just be like, I'm just concerned about you. That is all. I don't want to fight about this. I was just concerned. And if they're not receptive, then they're not going to, like, it's pointless for you to get defensive back at them because it's not going to do anything. It's just going to be you two fighting. So it's just, sometimes I think in those situations, it's just as long as they're not physically or verbally assaulting you, like I think it's okay to just step down and be like, okay, I just am concerned and I just wanted to make sure in a way. And even if you still believe they're in the cult and they're just denying it, like trying to tell them like you are denying it isn't going to make them not deny it, you know? But you could still have that open conversation with them as you
Yes.
should. But it's kind of like like they have to be open to the conversation as well. They have to be receptive of the conversation. Even if they don't think they're in a cult, they still have to at least be willing to consider the fact that they might be in a cult, because if they're not open to having that conversation, then you're not going to be able to have that conversation with them anyways. But you should still, I'm not saying don't try, but just be wary that they may become defensive and not be open to that reception. But you should still, if you are concerned about your friend, try to have that conversation with
Yes.
them. But I think that's all I guess I
Yeah.
have. I mean, I could talk on cults forever, but I think it's just important to kind of know what a cult is technically considered and just critically think
Yeah.
about them. But you guys can just leave a comment below letting us know what you want us to talk about in future episodes.
Or you can reach out to us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or TikTok. And we do some Twitch live streams once in a while.
So don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so that you know when we do, because we'd love to see you guys there. But otherwise, we will see you guys next time.